Are Delta-8, Delta-10, and other hemp products safe and legal in Wisconsin? What to know? This comes from the great state of Wisconsin. I'm not exactly sure what their cannabis program entails, but this sort of is dealing with the other side of the coin, these hemp-derived compounds. So the article starts off, is Delta-8 real weed? It kind of tips me off that the author of this article doesn't know what they're talking about. So Delta-8 is extracted from hemp, a cannabis plant that contains low levels of Delta-9 THC, the psychoactive compound associated with marijuana. Well, right away, that sentence is factually incorrect. You don't extract Delta-8 from low THC hemp. So I'll correct these statements as we go through the article. So in recent years, manufacturers have found ways to chemically extract it. Well, again, they're not chemically extracting anything. They're converting it chemically from CBD and other similar compounds and adding them to vapes and gummies and more. So then it moves on to, is Delta-8 legal and how? Well, through the Farm Bill of 2018, Congress legalized hemp, a variety of the cannabis plant with low levels of THC. Chemical processing yields a concentrated, potent THC extract. Well, that's not necessarily the case, right? So if it's low THC hemp, extraction doesn't somehow magically just move up the THC number, while the THC percentage in the plant is going to be much lower than it is in the extract. You don't make THC on extraction. It has to be chemically synthesized. So chemical processing yields a concentrated, potent THC extract. Again, I already poo-pooed that. Products made with this extract are supposed to contain the same low levels of THC, but that isn't always the case. Though marketed as Farm Bill compliant, these products remain in a legal gray area. Regulators and state law enforcement officials have called on Congress to clarify the law. So can Delta-8 make you high? It depends on the dosage and sometimes the person. The compound acts like traditional marijuana. Well, if you're talking about specifically Delta-8, you shouldn't be comparing it to the entire plant. You should be comparing it to Delta-9. So, again, this author is a little lost in thinking that somehow Delta-8 is basically a flower of some sort. So the compound acts much like traditional marijuana. Low dosage may deliver a mild buzz or none at all. High dosage products taken in greater quantities can deliver a powerful high. Well, what the science tells us is that, yes, Delta-9 THC has a stronger binding affinity to the CB1 receptor than does Delta-8 THC, but that difference is really minor and very, very small and not likely to be felt at the user level. My theory is the reason why a lot of the claims around Delta-8 products being less potent than Delta-9 products is because in Delta-8 products, there's a lot of other crap in there. Right? So it lowers the overall effective dose. But really, if you look at the Delta-8 molecule and you look at the Delta-8 molecule, Delta-9 molecule, they're pretty similar. They're just isomers of one another with a very lighter amount of binding with Delta-8, but probably not enough to be discernible at the user level. So how safe is Delta-8? Well, simply put, we don't know. Well, that's not necessarily true. There's been a lot of studies to look at the safety of cannabinoids. In fact, the U.S. government sponsored studies way back when to see what the lethal doses of THC, and they found out that, the lethal doses were extremely high. So basically, cannabinoids are quite safe. It's the unknown products that are in these products that people are consuming that potentially could be dangerous. So the U.S. Food and Drug Administration does not test hemp products. Well, Of course they don't test hemp products. They're not in the hemp products testing business. U.S. Food and Drug Administration is basically the regulatory authority. They're not on planet Earth to basically test products. So I don't know what this author is referring to. And it says the agency has limited tools of managing the many risks associated with these products. Due to inconsistent production and packaging, often containing little or misleading information, it can be easy unwittingly to take too much of these products. And regulators and health experts have also flashed warnings in some of the ways that Delta-8 products are processed. How old do I need to be to buy Delta-8? Well, there are no federal minimum age for buying Delta-8, but I believe most of these websites, if you're buying over the web, will ask you if you're 21 years of age, but all somebody underage needs to do is click on that, yes, I am 21, and 2 more clicks, they're asking for your credit card. So, states like Alabama, Florida, Kentucky, Maryland, Wyoming, and Minnesota restrict the sale to people 21 years or older. And like I said, most internet sites do as well. Although it's just easy to get around the internet thing. You just click on the box saying you're 21. Some other states, including Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, have no age limit whatsoever. What are some of the possible benefits and harms of Delta-8? Well, an online survey of Delta-8 consumers found most reported feelings of relaxation, euphoria, and pain relief, right? Similar to Delta-9, right? Not too much different from that. They also said that Delta-8 will likely cause less paranoia than marijuana. Well, I'll say that, what causes paranoia with marijuana has nothing to do with the physiological action of the compounds on your body. It has to do with the stupid laws that marijuana consumers have to consume cannabis, and that's what causes paranoia. Okay, but the experience can depend on the person and the dosage. As sales have soared to almost $3 billion annually, well, check that number for a second, because what we understand is that this market exceeds $28 billion annually. I don't know where this $3 billion annually comes from. So reports of bad reactions ranging from an unpleasant evening visit to the hospital to cannabinoid-induced psychosis. There's one for you to consider, John. Cannabinoid-induced psychosis. They're talking about this again. So poison control centers have also received thousands of calls concerning consumption by teens and children. Will Delta-8 test positive on a drug test? Delta-8 is very similar to Delta-9 in marijuana, even though it has a weaker bond to receptors in the brain. We already said that. The body still processes it in the same way, and to be honest, the metabolism of these compounds, whether it's Delta-8 or Delta-9, is still going to show up in a drug test, because they're looking for the 11-hydroxy and norcarboxy, and those are both made on metabolism of Delta-8 or Delta-9. Can I take Delta-9 while pregnant or breastfeeding? Well, those aren't questions I have to ask myself, but certainly ladies in the audience do. And it says the FDA should avoid taking CBD, cannabidiol, marijuana, or other cannabis products while pregnant or breastfeeding. Heavy use is associated with low birth rate. Well, I think what we also know from the science is that mother's milk contains endocannabinoids, right? So, and it's actually the endocannabinoids in mother's milk, which, by the way, comes in the cutest containers. That was a joke. That creates the suckling response that the infant undergoes. So what the infant is sucking on, heat, literally, what is causing that suckling is the interaction with the infant's endocannabinoid system. So what do I do if my child has consumed Delta-8 THC? Well, it says here to call 911 if a child has consumed a Delta-8 product and is unable to respond, having difficulty breathing or having seizures. I've never heard of somebody consuming a Delta-8 product and having seizures, so that's interesting. If a child has consumed a Delta-8 product and is not having a life-threatening system as described, a caretaker should call the Poison Help Center. Often children experiencing symptoms related to consumption of Delta-8 will need monitoring or treatment in a healthcare facility. Just need to basically let them come down on the couch. Really, there's not a whole lot that's going to happen when it wears off. So can I die from Delta-8? A handful of deaths have potentially been linked to Delta-8. According to a study published last January, the FDA has reports of 22 deaths between 2018 and 2021 where Delta-8 was present. It was the only substance found in 4 of those deaths. So whether or not the Delta-8 was really responsible for those deaths, I think, is a little dubious. It says here, you mentioned Delta-9. I'm seeing these products too. It's confusing because Delta-9, which again is a natural form of the isomer, is also being derived from CBD chemical conversion now. And it is the psychoactive component in cannabis, and present in low levels in hemp, and also can be extracted and purified through something called a mother liquor, which is in the CBD isolation process. All the other minor cannabinoids concentrate into a fraction called mother liquor, which starts to become enriched with THC the more CBD you remove, CBD isolate you remove from that. So by applying the logic of the Farm Bill, retailers are now flooding physical stores and online sites with Delta-9 products that they say are Farm Bill compliant, but the so-called hemp-derived Delta-9 is still derived in a chemical reaction. Research has shown that some of those products contain even more THC than would be allowed in legal marijuana states. What about Delta-10 and HHC and THC JD? Since Delta-8 became legal, a number of new compounds are available for sale. Those include Delta-8, Delta, here it just says Delta-O. I don't know what Delta-O is. HHC, which we know is hexahydrocannabinol. And THC-JD, God, I think that's the 6-carbon tail, not the 5-carbon tail. Those are all, well, except for Delta-10, those cannot, and I guess HHC, those cannot be made from hemp. Those are made synthetically. So this, again, author is a little bit out of her league here. Are the regulators taking any action? The FDA has issued warning letters to some producers, and it says it has the authority to oversee the hemp market, but is now limited by, I guess, constraints in the regulatory regime. The Drug Enforcement Administration is reviewing if hemp products should be classified as controlled substances, and several states have moved to limit or ban Delta-8 and synthetic cannabinoids altogether. So again, this is the same story we've been talking about here at High on 9 forever, which is that people are basically converting in chemical reactions to make compounds that can go into psychoactive products, all under the hemp banner of, hey, it's 2018 Farm Bill compliant, so we're good. My position always has been is that if people have unfettered access to high-quality cannabis and cannabis products, that they won't need these recreational synthetics. And these recreational synthetics will be relegated to the lab for people like me and other researchers to study to see if there is any pharmaceutical application of some of these minor cannabinoids. That's what I have to say here from the halls of Shirey Science Hall on the campus of St. Michael's College here in Colchester, Vermont. That's my story for today. Jason, thank you for moving me up into batting order. I'd be interested in what my other colleagues have to say on this story. Have a great weekend. Enjoy your 420. Hug a grower if you could find one. And I'd be interested in what Dale, Jean, and Rico, and Jason and Matt all have to say about this article. Thanks, guys.
Oh, man, I mean, Delta-8 is just such trash, bro, and I'm just not a fan of any synthetic cannabinoids at all whatsoever, and this just highlights all of the medical reasons of why I'm not a fan of any of this crap.
Yeah, it really... Yeah, it's just the kind of thing where, again, I think that people, when it comes down to it, people want to get high. They want to feel the psychoactivity. And if they have access to good quality cannabis, we know that that's all they need. These states that basically where Delta-8 is popular is states that don't have good cannabis program, and patients and users don't have access to cannabis. If they have access to cannabis, we won't need these kinds of products. I don't know if everybody else feels that way.
Absolutely agree,
Here.
without question. And that's the same thing that has happened throughout history. When one thing is prohibited, the drug that we switch to is often stronger, smaller, and more dangerous, where the lethal dose is closer to the dose that affects you. And so, as a milk producer with
Oh, a milk producer. I see what you did there.
I have done a deep dive. I have nourished 3. I've been blessed to have been able to breastfeed, although the third one had a suckling problem. And you mentioned that the association of cannabis consumption and low birth weight, I want to say weight with a W, not rate. Kind of sounded like you said rate earlier, doctor, and I just want to make sure that people hear the W, a lower birth weight. Could also be associated with the fact that women who consume cannabis can't stop throwing up. They can't keep water down, never mind food. And the lower birth weight it's not a symptom of the cannabis consumption. It is correlated to the condition that they are suffering from. In addition to that, the prescriptions that are commonly off-label suggested to women have been proven more. Not proven more dangerous, proven to be dangerous, because we can't prove natural cannabis, to be dangerous to neonatal or fetal health. There are a couple studies that did occur, one particularly in Jamaica that I always go back to, where the children of the root daughters who did consume cannabis performed better in most of the cognitive amongst the matrix, 12 out of 14 indicators, they scored higher than the children whose moms did not consume cannabis. The breast milk is the most crucial thing for children, and to tell moms don't breastfeed, I think, is one of the most dangerous things. We don't really understand, nor have we proven a danger from consuming natural cannabis. And notice I keep saying natural cannabis at this point. I feel like I have to make that specificity because we cannot say the same safety profile for synthetics or what you're finding in the convenience store, off the shelf spice, all that crap. I cannot speak for the safety profile, and you should not use that, nor should you use cannabis or aspirin if you don't desperately need something under supervision of your doctor. Is still dangerous with cannabis. You can still be charged with a crime. Women are still shackled to give birth in states like Texas, and this is considered child abuse. And your doctors and nurses in every HMO and PPO are required to report. If you are in one of the government programs or the veteran services, they are required to report if they suspect that you are pregnant, you are now abusing your child in their mind. So you have to be extraordinarily careful to not have your child taken from you for admitting cannabis use. If you choose that path, I would recommend talking to midwives and doulas and women experienced in this path. There are some amazing supportive Facebook groups that I have witnessed and been a part of women supporting women during these conversations. You just have to be really careful and cautious about who you talk to and how.
Dale, I'm just curious. Does it help with morning sickness? Like, I mean, can you equate, something like the relaxation that you feel when you smoke cannabis with something that alleviates the symptoms of morning sickness?
Well, I had something much worse than morning sickness myself. And many of you are going to hyperemesis gravidarum. I actually have a cyclic vomiting syndrome. So I was regularly having to get hooked up to IVs and going to the hospital regardless, because you just can't keep water down. At a certain point, you go to the hospital. What I have discovered is vaporizing, and you can't throw up vapor. And so to calm the uncontrollable, it's just dry heaves at a certain point. You just can't stop dry heaving. Yes, I can report now that I think enough years have gone by. My husband grew CBD specific plants for me to vaporize, and it kept me out of the hospital some mornings. But I'm frightened even saying this aloud in this moment.
Fair enough.